Well, Razorback fans, there's something we really all need to understand, to acknowledge, and to feel going into this weekend dealing with the transfer portal in college basketball. It's a good thing. So let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Friday. You made it. You made it to the final day of the week, the work week, and getting ready for the weekend, which is always a lot of fun. And, of course, one of our favorite things to do, right? The weekend. And going to talk about some things that are going on with football a little bit. Yeah, football. I know Razorback Baseball's got a big series against Georgia on the road that's going to be vastly important. And also Theo Vaughn was at Bud Walton last night. I want to talk a little bit about that. But we start with what we've started with pretty much every single episode of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast over the past 2 weeks, and that is dealing with transfer portal nonsense, insanity. At the time of the recording of this podcast, nothing, again, has changed. Nobody's been added. Nobody's been taken away. Nobody's said that they're staying. Like, none of that stuff. It's all just the same. The exact same. And what a crazy thing it has been. Not in the good way, not in the way of like, oh, well, this is so fascinating, interesting. Can't wait to see what the rest of this holds. None of that. It's simply just like, what is happening? What is going on? Is anything happening? Even when things do get reported or brought up, even then it's gotten to the point to where there's no belief in it. Like, for instance, yesterday, I know a lot of people have been talking about it. I know Curtis has been talking about it, but Joe Tipton and On3 put out the report that the Florida State transfer big man Malik Ewan is focusing on 5 schools. This was coming out yesterday. 5 schools: Auburn, Kansas, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Virginia. Those are the 5 schools that he's looking at. So you have him. You still have the Pringle situation where they're looking at him, and also came out that On3 is having a crystal ball or leaning towards Pringle becoming a Razorback, whatever it is. And when these reports come out, and I'm not hating on any of the media or anybody who do the reporting or anything like that. It is simply just the current situation of what it is, where it's just like, I see this report and I see what happens with it, or at least what the possibilities are and all of that. And then I just simply go, okay, cool. So what now? Like, hearing these kids go, I got 5 schools. Okay, sweet. Nothing's happened from all these things. Like, there were players that were getting crystal balls towards Arkansas, or had been mentioned towards Arkansas, and it hasn't happened and didn't happen. And it's so, you hear these reports come out, you hear about players that they're talking to, players that they're interested in. We talked yesterday about that video that Cal put out, and trying to, I guess, maybe get people to focus in a little bit and calm down a little bit, whatever it is. You have all these things going on, but at the end of the day, it's just like a big nothing burger. I keep saying that Arkansas is going to have a team, and it's going to be a high-level team, a team that is going to be incredibly gifted, talented, talked about, highly regarded, all of those things. I still believe that. But this is just a whole new wave and a whole new line of thinking that I think all of us, and myself included, have to kind of get used to the way it's approached. Now, the transfer portal is not a new thing, but Cal at Arkansas in the portal is a new thing. And even though NIL is not a new thing, NIL pricing, NIL evaluations, NIL negotiations have changed dramatically. I remember back when Arkansas in football, this was after the 2021 season, I remember in the transfer portal, they had some really big time heavy hitters come in. Drew Sanders. They had Jaden Hazelwood, Matt Landers, Landon Jackson, Dwight McLaughlin, Latavius Breen. Like, they had all these players that were highly regarded and really good out of the portal that just came to Arkansas. And some of them panned out, some of them didn't. But that was just 3-4 years ago. And I remember, thinking about how good Arkansas must have it in the portal and, hey, how much you had to pay those guys or whatever. It is night and day different from what it was just back then to where it is now when it comes to the NIL and the negotiations. Everything was so new still, and they approached it. When I say they, talking about players, they just approached it as, well, I got to get settled in. It's almost like they still felt like there was a place in a school that they wanted to go to, and the NIL was just a bonus. There were some players that looked at just NIL strictly, and that was all they cared about. But there were a lot of players that felt like, hey, if I really want to go to Bama, and hopefully they give me a good offer and everything, but I could also see myself at LSU if they gave me a better offer. Like, there was just always these different elements that went into it, but you still had players that wanted to go and play at certain schools for certain reasons because it was a program and it was a culture and it was coaching that would be able to get you to that next level. And I still think there's a little bit of it, but it's just changed. It's gotten to the point now where there's so much involvement in what these negotiations are like. And this is something that I'm not just making up. I'm not just guessing at this. I've actually talked to a lot of people, whether it's student athletes that dealt with this or whether it's these representations or representatives, agents for these players, coaches, whoever, that deal with the negotiations of these things and how intense they are, how problematic they can become, where there's some players that just listen to an agent. They're like, hey, man, get in the portal, you'll get big money. They get in the portal, they don't get that big money. And they play these games. And sometimes players, and it can be players, but more often than not, it's the representations that play these games of, say, if they got an offer of $500,000 to a school, but they think they can get more. So they're going to go to that school that offered them $500,000 be like, well, this school over here is offering us $700,000, even if it's blatantly false and not true at all. But there's no way to check. There's no way to know if it's true or not. And so you have these reps just keep upping the prices. And what ends up happening is that either, one of two things. One, a school overpays for said player and doesn't get the results in which they could have used some of that other money and other funding to maybe help out in other ways. So it ends up costing them that way. Or that player ends up getting kind of outed a little bit and they lose those opportunities to go to the schools that actually would have been really good for them because those schools moved on and then they end up being left holding a bag. Like that, it's just all of those things that go into it. And in basketball this year and with Razorback basketball, I still know for a fact that Arkansas has the NIL to compete with anybody. I mean, it's one of the highest dealings of NIL. Like, I know that. But it's also a matter of figuring out and just a few players that you have on the roster, who do you want and how are you going to get them and everything? Because even if you had a player like we'll just say a Nelly Davis caliber player from the portal last year, because Nelly Davis was the number one player in the portal. Say if the number one player in the portal this year was interested in going to Arkansas, okay? Well, it's simply, just throw out this amount of money. Well, say if Arkansas is willing to offer him to pay the most, and he's like, okay, and he's a point guard. Okay, well, yeah, they offer me the most. But then he looks at Arkansas's roster and he's like, well, what you got DJ Wagner over here, and you got Darius Acuff coming in. And, maybe they sign another guard and they're going to be like, well, I mean, I can get all the money all day long, but I can't play over there. I can't get the exposure I need. I'm not going to get the ball in my hands. So even though you offer me the most amount of money, that's not a situation I want to be in. And basketball is such the most important one because it's such a small and limited roster as it is that one player can make all the difference in the world. So you have to be extremely selective in how you approach it. And with Cal, a guy who can identify the talent, I think that's also when we played a little bit of the video yesterday. I think that he understands the need for transfer portals and those players. But instead of dealing with that, it's almost like it's too nonsensical. The high school element of it is a lot easier. It's a lot more simplistic. It's a lot more direct. It's like, hey, I want you one and done year. You come here, boom, this is what you got. And you lock in. But with a lot of these transfer portal people, they get to the point to where they have a lesser amount of years. They try to, because they felt like they've established themselves at the college level, that they're going to demand more. And so many people are just going all in on that. It becomes a lot more difficult to deal with. Now, I'm not saying that Cal doesn't want to deal with it or he isn't capable of dealing with it. I'm just saying it's all nonsense. It's nonsensical to where if you're somebody like John Calipari, all you want to do is just get the guys that you want and what you're comfortable with and what you've been comfortable with and what you know you can do and what you know you can handle and what you know you can be able to put together. And that to me is why this is a little bit of a reckless assumption, but that's to me why Cal is looking at a Nate Ament type player, for instance, and saying, I feel like it's a lot easier to get a player like that than it is to get somebody of a major caliber level in the transfer portal who's got all these other schools that they're hearing from, because they're going all in on that. And they have these reps, they have these agents. The value of those transfer portals in some cases might actually truly legitimately be higher, but a lot of their value is a lot higher than what they think it is. And they overvalue themselves and it ends up costing them. And I think that that's one thing that Cal is going to be extra cautious about when it comes to the transfer portal, is not getting anybody that they're going to overvalue or anything like that, where they could, kind of use that funding, use that money to keep a Trevin Brazil or a Carter Knox or a DJ Wagner or whoever, keep a player like that, like not overpaying for the new player, but making sure that you take care of the guys that you know and that you trust and that you understand and everything. So I say all that. I know it's like a long-winded deal, and you're probably just weighing like, well, what does all that mean? I'll say this is how I'll end it with this. It's such a terrible, gross, stupid game that is being played with all of this. And I don't think anyone likes it, but it's the reality and it's the way it is. And if you want to compete at the highest level and you want to be one of the best teams and the best programs, you got to play that game. I know no coach likes it. No, like Cal does not like it. I know that schools don't like it. And in some cases, I don't even know how many players truly like it. But you got to play the game. And Arkansas is playing the game. And I believe in Cal, and I believe that he's going to have a phenomenal roster. But it's all going to come down to, is he going to be the one that takes it and extends it to get the best players on the roster? And it does it at the cost of something else, the sacrifice of something else, of a different player, of a different funding, whatever it is. Is he willing to do that? Is he going to do that? Time will tell. But the one thing I'll give Cal a lot of credit in is it seems like he's really focused on keeping the players that are on the roster and getting new freshman players. I can deal with that. But the portal's still important. I just feel like right now it's probably a lesser priority than maybe what other schools are doing. We'll see if it pays off for Cal. We're going to do a little Razorback football and talk about the defense, because we heard from Travis Williams yesterday, the defense coordinator. We'll do that in a second, so stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, this is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were ever going to get any money back. And then waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Well, now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return. While you get real-time updates on their progress, you can focus on your day. An expert who will find every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in the iOS app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. So, Razorback football, spring football still going. And, it's just amazing how much we've been limited in our accesses there. I know that I have to go on a tangent, but as all of you know, the university, they don't credential podcast. I don't think they take it very seriously, and they haven't taken mine very seriously, even though it's the number one Razorback podcast. But it's not just like a me thing. Like they've really limited, I think, access year in and year out more and more and more, where you can't cover the team as much. Like, I mean, they even had I saw some rules this year for those who were covering spring practices that you can't tweet out anything that a coach says in a practice, or you can't film them and post any practice clips of a coach using a profanity against a player. Like, just really ridiculous stuff. But either way, that's another tale for another time. Point is that we don't really get a chance to dive into seeing what this team is all about and what it is and how it's going to be. All we go off of mainly is off of press conferences and what coaches say, and you have to take them at their word, even if they may be wrong and everything. Well, anyways, one coach that I've always liked, and I still really like, because it's one thing with Arkansas, I love the coordinators that they have. And Travis Williams, I'll be honest, I thought he was going to be a coach that moved on. I thought he was going to be a coach that was going to just bounce out, after a certain amount of time. And because he's so good, like he'd be a head coach somewhere or anything like that. So I'm pretty surprised, all things considered, to see that he's still here at Arkansas. Well, he met with the media, and he had a few interesting things to say, but dealing with the current roster and depth and everything and the portal and all that stuff, everyone's kind of dealing with it. But here's what he had to say about the current status of things, and it had an interesting point talking about his defense and the depth situation there too.
You start out, you go out there, we don't have the depth that we would have in the spring. And then for us defensively, like I talked to the staff, we football coaches. So you could complain about the depth, or you could coach football and get guys better. So we just been focusing on, okay, who's out there? Let's get them better. And you can see the defense is getting better as a whole. We got guys that's out with injuries and different things like that. So, man, if you're a football coach, man, coach football. Don't complain. It is what it is. At the end of the day, nobody cares anyway. So defensively, like I talked to the staff, let's go out there and let's just coach. Let's coach to see if they can get better. And they actually has gotten better. Now we have to go get some more pieces and different things like that, but very pleased with just the growth of the defense overall.
Shout out to Picture Nation for that video. I'm a big fan of Travis Williams, but he and what Petrino has said is, and I think that they're handling it the best way. And I'm not necessarily even faulting them personally for these things, but man, it's just when you hear that about, like, well, we can't worry about the numbers. We don't have the depth. We don't have the numbers. We don't have the situation that we have. So we just got to go out there and coach the group that we have. It comes across as almost like we got to play the cards that we're dealt, which is fair. And that's a reality, but it's still not something that is really provoking enthusiasm and inspiration. It just kind of comes across as, man, we don't have the things that we had needed. We did not get the players that we felt like would help. We're still missing some pieces, but hey, we're coaches, so we got to coach, and we're going to coach these guys. Doesn't mean that they're going to be better than what they were a year ago. Doesn't mean that they're going to be individually talented, more talented than what they were a year ago. But we're going to do our best. And again, I'm not blaming or taking shots or taking issue with them saying that, because it is the truth, and I applaud them for that. But it's just another reaffirmation of what we've all been talking about and how problematic this potentially could be. Arkansas, when I saw that they were at 5.5 wins, yes, we talked about it yesterday, over 5.5 wins, over under 5.5 wins. I was just like mind blown. I was like, man, there ain't no way that they're going to be able to do this, not with the roster that they have. And then I just hear the coaches talk about it, where I don't know ball, but I know people. I keep saying that. And the people, and looking at it and looking at all that they have going on, it just really makes me uneasy about the current status. And I hate that. And I want to find reasons to be pumped up and excited about this offense, about this defense, about this team in general. And man, it just makes it really tough. Makes it really tough to feel like it's going to be okay. I get the vibe that the coaches are playing a little bit behind the eight ball, or coaching a little bit behind the eight ball, because of the issues, whether it's a lack of NIL, whether it's the lack of the understanding of the portal, whether it's the lack of whatever it is. But it's like, I don't feel good about it. And I feel for the coaches because they can only do so much. I want to know what this Remy Cofield guy is going to be doing. We haven't heard a peep out of him. And what is that going to look like? What's he going to do? Is he going to help out in the portal in the spring? Are they actually going to get a bunch of players? Or is this it? But I do believe that you have good coaches, and that's really the point I'm trying to make. I believe you have good coaches. I believe Travis Williams is a great coach. Bobby Petrino's a great coach. I think you have great coaches. But great coaches can only take teams so far if they don't have the talent. And we know in the SEC, all these other programs are so far and away surpassed you. They've just surpassed you. And it feels like it every single day, which is why I think a lot of fans are just kind of out on football right now. You look at Ole Miss and they're killing it. You look at Texas A&M and what they got going on. You look at LSU. You look at Tennessee, Texas. The teams that you're going to be facing every year. Even Auburn did a really good job in the portal. Mississippi State, we're going to wait and see, but man, it's just how do you fix this? Because I don't even know. It gets to maybe I'm looking too much into it. Maybe I'm being too overly dramatic, but I think this is even a bigger problem than what it's a Sam Pittman thing. I know a lot of people don't like Sam Pittman or wanted him fired or whatever it is, but this may be something that's even above him because there's just not a lot there that makes you feel comfortable and confident that it's all going to be okay in Razorback football. And that is a very scary, sad, and nerve-wracking feeling. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Wouldn't be the first time I've been wrong about something. And I would gladly love to be wrong about this. I want to talk about Theo Vaughn on the other side of the break. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Okay, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Last night, a lot of you probably did the same thing. I went to, I guess I don't know if you want to call it a concert. It's more of a comedy show, I guess, a performance, whatever it is. Theo Vaughn was at Bud Walton Arena last night, and I got to attend, and it was awesome, man. I love comedy shows, and we don't really get a whole lot of them here in the Northwest Arkansas area. But when we do, I try to go to them, but especially when it's in Bud Walton Arena. I know they do a lot of things at the AMP, but when it's at Bud Walton Arena, it's a little bit more special and everything. So this was great, though. Great turnout, packed out place, and it was hilarious. But apparently, it was kind of a great story from Theo Vaughn. We was talking about he met Sam Pittman, and he started talking about how it was cool and everything, and he mentioned he said that Pittman talked about Bobby. And I remember I heard that when Theo said, I was like, oh, is he talking about Bobby Petrino? And then Theo's like, well, me and my other guy, we thought he was talking about, Bobby Kennedy, man, RFK, bro. He's like, he started doing his impersonation, and him and the other comedian that was his opening act started doing the impersonation of Bobby Kennedy with his voice and all that. They were just going off because they're like, hey, this professional man knows he's talking about Bobby Kennedy. And then he said that after they went on and they did their impressions and laughing about it, Pittman just goes, Bobby. And they said they immediately knew that Pittman was actually referring to Bobby Lee, the comedian, by that. And they said it was the funniest thing and really cool. But, one of the things that I will give Pittman a lot of credit for is that he always tries to, promote the Hogs and have people root for the Hogs. And I love the way he put it. And again, you got to kind of imagine it in Theo Vaughn's voice. But he was basically saying that Pittman told him, hey, if you ever see us on TV and need a team to pull for, pull for us, pull for the Hogs. We'd love to have you as a fan. And Theo was like, oh, yeah, I love it. And, it was a show, so I don't think he's going to be like, oh, I'm always going to pull for the Razorbacks. It'd be really cool if he did. But it's just cool. It was a really great show, and I wish the Bud Walton and Razorback Stadium and, the athletic department, everything would do more of that stuff. I know they've kind of started doing more of it. Maybe not do an Alan Jackson show on the day of the Arkansas Texas A&M football game. Maybe not do that because that was the stupidest thing you could ever do. But do more of those things and to have the connections with celebrities and people that are outside the state of Arkansas when they come in, and then tie it in with Razorback stuff is always really cool, regardless of how dumb the story is or how dumb the connection is or whatever it is. it's always a really cool thing. So glad that happened, and it was a great show. I know a lot of you who went and watched it feel the same way, but either way, should be a great weekend, folks. It's going to be a great weekend. Hopefully it's great for Razorback baseball. Hopefully there's some portal pops, and hopefully on Monday we have a fun-filled show of nothing but positive vibes and positive stuff going on. That's my hope, at least. But either way, appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel. Next Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody. See you then.